We'll give a minute for people to join in and then we'll start. Sumana?
Yes, Deepak. To all the participants, welcome to this webinar. We will wait to give others also to a chance to join in, and we'll be starting in another minute. Right, let's start. Hi everyone. In Malayalam, we say Ellavarkkum Namaskaram, which means welcome to all of you. WRI India, along with KSEBL EV Cell, is organizing this webinar for you. This is a part of the series of webinar we are planning for Kerala, specifically focused on how to prepare Kerala's electricity grid for EV charging. So we are doing the introductory webinar in this series, which will help us understand how electric vehicles are going in Kerala, what is their charging related aspects, and what is their grid impact. And this webinar will set the context for the future discussions that we have on on utility planning aspects related to EV. We all know that KCB is a progressive utility which has already taken many initiatives to promote EV charging. And this specific webinar is a part of KSEB's interaction with the public, so that they can be, we can all be a part of their journey on how they are gearing up for to support the EV growth in Kerala. Before I proceed, I want to take you to a few webinar guidelines. So please stay on mute while you're not speaking. So this is a 1 hour webinar which will be recording. So all of the questions that we have for the panelists, please put it under the Q&A box. We have a few interactive polls during the webinar, so please take a moment to participate. And we also have given how you can reach out to us. So the agenda we have in front of us, you can actually see that. So I'm going to proceed right away, and I'm going to request Deputy Director of WRI India Energy Team, Deepak Krishnan, to come in and deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you, Chandana, and Ellavarkkum Namaskaram. So I'm very happy to get this webinar series started. So WRI India has been supporting Kerala by partnering with multiple organizations, including ANERD, EMC, Nava Kerala Karma Paddhati, Trivandrum Municipal Corporation, the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority, and Kerala State Electricity Board. Of course, we have also been engaging institute-wide with the Transport Department and other agencies within the state. So our Sustainable Energy Transition project in Kerala aims to support state and local governments in solving challenges posed by climate change and energy transition. This engagement is long-term, particularly the one with KSEB. It's a long-term collaboration that explores various pathways for renewable energy adoption and strategies to manage the increasing electricity demand. Now, Kerala, as we know, is a progressive state across multiple indices. It is no different when it comes to the case of climate. It has set an ambitious target ahead of the national targets to achieve a net carbon neutral situation by 2050. Now, within this, the transport sector accounts for 54% of the energy-related emissions in Kerala. And so, therefore, you can, draw the conclusions as to why it is necessary for efforts to reduce emissions from this sector if these, ambitious climate goals have to be achieved. Now, the action plan for climate change identifies adoption of electric vehicles as a key strategy for this climate mitigation. And accordingly, the state had also formulated a policy for EV promotion in 2019. As we'll see, in the upcoming slides, we can see that Kerala is one of the leading states for EV adoption in India. But we also know that increasing adoption of EVs implies an increase in electricity demand. That is the very basic causal relationship that comes up. And given this, Kerala State Electricity Board, KSEB, has an important role to meet the electricity demand. And it is irrespective of the load. So EV load is also no different. You need to serve the load that comes up. KSEB serves as a state nodal agency for facilitating the EV growth in the state. It facilitates EV charging through its own charging infrastructure and also providing supply for other chargers, which you might be seeing in multiple places in malls or apartment complexes, etc. It's a growing, increasingly familiar sight in our cities. KSEB has also taken many innovative approaches to facilitate charging in the state. For example, deployment of pole-mounted charging stations. There are close to 1,170 in total. And there are also innovative initiatives like refresh and recharge to upgrade existing charging stations and to develop guidelines for an app-free, seamless EV charging ecosystem. So, think of all your EV chargers in one location, irrespective of the manufacturer or the system integrator, how useful that will be, so that you don't have to have multiple apps on your phone. So, and we are happy to, know of and to support such initiatives, and we aim to continue to support KSEB on understanding the grid impacts of EV charging and how the utility can plan for, electricity infrastructure to serve EV charging. So as part of this effort, we are organizing webinars focused on making Kerala grid ready for the EV future, where we will explore the implications of rising EV demand on the state's charging infrastructure, the distribution grid capacity. So how does this, concern you as a common citizen? For example, the electricity infrastructure that is going to be set up, higher capacity transformers, when they need to be set up, when can we use existing different techniques to shift the load to different parts of the day, so that this infrastructure capital expenditure can be deferred to 4 or 5 years, thereby saving money for the state. So all these are questions that directly impact us as citizens. So it is important to explore this. So this webinar series will also focus on synergies of, how can renewable energy adoption, synchronize with electric vehicle growth. Now, I mentioned earlier that electric vehicle growth leads to electricity demand, but, if we end up serving that by, traditional fossil fuel sources, it doesn't, make a difference in energy transition. So therefore, this importance of synchronizing renewable energy adoption with EVs. A key feature of this webinar series will also be the introduction of different tools and methods to help electricity distribution utilities to plan and manage this demand. So one such tool is called Elevate. We'll be discussing it in brief today, and in subsequent webinars we'll go in depth into it. To conclude, I would like to thank the following officials and colleagues for their support and guidance. The current CMD of KSEB, Shri Mir Mohammad Ali IAS, the former chairperson, Shri Biju Prabhakar IAS, also Shri Sanjeev Ji, who is the Director of Renewable Energy and Energy Services, Srimati Asha PA, Chief Engineer of the REES Department, and her team, including Srimati Sini John, Shri Sajjan Ismail, and the KSEB EV Accelerator Cell team. And also I would like to thank my colleagues at WRI, Chandana, Ijaz, Dylan, Varun, Akanksha, and Rumpa and Ahana for helping take us through this webinar series. Thank you. Looking forward to the great discussions.
Thank you, Deepak. So as the next item in our program, I'm going to invite Srimati Asha PA. She's the serving chief engineer for the REES team in KSEB for her keynote address.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all the distinguished participants to today's webinar titled Charging Kerala Forward, organized jointly by WRI and Kerala State Electricity Board Limited. This initiative marks a crucial step in our shared journey toward building an EV-ready and resilient power grid in the state of Kerala. As we all know, the rapid transition to electric mobility is no longer a distant vision, but a present and pressing reality. At KSEBL, we recognize that electric vehicles will not only change how we commute, but also how we plan, operate, and strengthen our electricity networks. Integrating EV charging infrastructure with the grid in a sustainable and efficient manner is both a challenge and opportunity. One that we must address through collaboration, innovation, and foresight. In this regard, I am proud to share that the EV Accelerator Cell of KSEB is actively working to address the technical, regulatory, and operational aspects of grid integration for EVs. We are engaging with leading research institutions like WRI India, whose knowledge and global insights are invaluable and helping us shape practical and data-driven approaches tailored to Kerala's unique energy landscape. Today's webinar is part of a larger knowledge series, and we will continue to host such focused discussions in the coming months. These platforms are designed not only to disseminate insights, but also to serve an interactive forum. I sincerely encourage all stakeholders, industry partners, researchers, policy experts, and field engineers to share your thoughts, questions, and suggestions. Your feedback is crucial in shaping solutions that are both technically sound and operationally feasible. Let us together build a grid that is not just for EV ready, but future ready. Thanking you all once again for joining us today, and I look forward to a productive and engaging session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Asha ma'am. So next item on our agenda is for EVCell to share a few thoughts on their initiatives, their innovative initiatives on EV charging ecosystem in India. I'm welcoming Sini ma'am and Sajjan Ismail from EV Accelerator Cell KSEBL for that.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Chandra, can you share that slide? Hello, good evening, everyone. KSEBL has started an EV Accelerator Cell in the Office of Chief Engineer Renewable Energy with the approval from Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Power, Government of India. The functions of Accelerator Cell include creating awareness about e-mobility among the stakeholders and also the general public. The assessment of locations for EV charging infrastructure, identifying the challenges faced by charge point operators and finding solutions for addressing them, and making preparations for KSEBL for the augmentation of grid in view of growing electric vehicles in the state. And as you all know, one of the primary initiative of Accelerator Cell is creating awareness about the e-mobility growth in the state among various stakeholders and public. So we have created a platform for that. So this is the introductory webinar among that series. Chandra, the next slide. And one of the key initiatives by KSEBL is the refresh and recharge project that's going to happen. This is basically for revamping and upgrading the KSEBL charging stations. KSEBL has set up a network of charging stations in the state of Kerala in all the districts. These stations were set up during 2019 to 22. So the machines have become of less use now due to incompatibility with the new generation EVs. And these stations lack basic amenities like seating arrangement, restrooms, etc. So KSEB is planning to revamp or upgrade these stations with the latest technology chargers and introduce essential amenities like restrooms, refreshment, cafeteria, and seating arrangements like that. And we're going to do this in public pride participation mode, PPP mode. We have invited tenders for that. The last date of submission is 27th of this month. And we are expecting good participation for this bid. And with this, I'm closing my remarks. We are going to have a nice webinar. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cinema. Sajan, do you want to add a few words?
No, you may please.
All right. So with everybody's permission, we are going to proceed to the next session. This is a short presentation that based on WRI India's preliminary analysis of what we have done based on the Kerala EV ecosystem, how if it is evolving. So as I have indicated, we are sharing the preliminary findings with you, and we do hope that you can share your feedback and other perspectives with them. And we will also talk about the further studies that we are planning for Kerala. Join me for this presentation are my colleagues Deepa Krishnan and Ijaz MA. So we're going to do a poll first to see how much we actually know about the EV ecosystem in Kerala. Rumpa, can we do the poll? So you have two questions for you. Yeah. The first question is, how many electric vehicles are registered in Kerala till now? And what is the current penetration of electric vehicles in Kerala? I hope everybody has voted. If everybody has voted, we can close the poll room and share the results. All right, so how the team has voted is, for the first question, we have said that, okay, of course, I can see a lot of us are on the ambitious path. Yes, we have said that 33, the room is a little bit divided though. So basically right now we have close to 2.41 lakhs electric vehicles that are registered in Kerala. So many of you, 1/3 of the room is definitely on the right side. On answering the next question, what is the current penetration rate of electric vehicles in Kerala? Yeah, again, I can see the enthusiasm in the room. The correct answer is, the last year, our penetration rate was 10.5, and starting from April, we have progressed a little bit more, as you can see in the next slide that I'm presenting. So we tried to map how electric vehicles are coming up in Kerala, especially after the Kerala EV policy was launched in 2019. Kerala was one of the early states who had launched a policy. And what we do see is tremendous growth. Why I want to insist on a tremendous growth is, when the EV policy was launched in FY 2019, the registrations were only 419 in fact. And then suddenly we saw that in 22, we started hitting double digits. So we had crossed 14K registrations. And subsequently, the next year, we went to 50,000 registrations. And right now, we are at close to 80,000 plus registrations every year. And we are kind of at par with Delhi when it comes to the actual number of vehicles that are getting registered. And in terms of where we are on the penetration rate, as you can see, the sudden rapid increase is also evident to you. So for the past FY 24 and 25, we have actually hit about 10%. So that's actually above the norm and a good performer all over India. And starting from this financial year, actually, we are also climbing more heights. So we are at 12.5%. So but when we think of what kind of vehicles are getting registered is very important. to plan the charging equation for the vehicles. So why I do want to bring attention to this is because Kerala is a unique state. Every state will not have the same kind of electric vehicles. As you can see evidently in your screen, so out of that 2.4 lakhs vehicles, if we compare with the data from all the Vahan enabled states in India, that is close to, that is 60 plus lakh vehicles. What we can see is Kerala doesn't really have any electric rickshaws. And in terms of the absolute number of two-wheelers in our mix and even electric cars in our mix, we are actually on a higher end. This is also because in Kerala, the vehicle mix is also different. In Kerala actually has a higher share of two-wheelers and cars compared to whatever is the national average. And interestingly, this becomes a good thing, when it comes to how our charging behavior also for EVs will differ. So this is a very interesting perspective that we should have. Whereas apart from e-rickshaws, there are also three-wheeler models which are capturing adoption. The adoption for those vehicles are increasing, and we can see that Kerala has started looking at those models as well, definitely. So that's definitely happening. And we have some adoption of buses that is definitely happening. To give you a better picture, I'm going to go over, because this is basically till now how many registrations have happened. To give you a better picture, I can give you a comparison between different vehicle mix, EV penetration, different vehicle categories in Kerala in the last year. So in the last year, we were close to 13% in terms of two-wheeler registration. This is actually very much higher than the national average. The national average for this is close to 6%. So we are actually on a higher end. So which means that there are close to 50,000, 5 lakh 5 lakh two-wheelers that are registered in Kerala, out of which we have the 13% share is coming out as two-wheelers, which is actually a good number. In terms of cars that are getting registered in Kerala, this is close to 2 lakh cars. We have currently hit 5.7% of penetration. This is also higher than the national average, which is actually close to 2.5 or 2.6%. In this case also, we are doing well. Where we are slightly performing lesser than the national average or in comparison with other high EV rich states would be in the adoption of electric three-wheeler passenger vehicles as well as the electric three-wheeler goods carrying vehicles. We do have good penetration, 14.7 and 18.7, they are good numbers. But if I were to compare it to a national average is slightly higher, between 20 and 23%. In terms of national average, where Kerala is also differs is in the case of electric buses. Kerala, buses is still 1% of bus registrations in FY 24-25 was only buses. In terms of the national average is slightly higher. It is close to 3%. In terms of the other goods vehicles, which is apart from three-wheelers, this would have medium, heavy, and light vehicles. Therein, we are at 0.8% of goods vehicle penetration, which is actually a good number. The national average is also somewhere closer to 0.6 or 0.7%. We are high, but there are some states wherein there has been significant progress when it comes to EV adoption, and we'll explain the reason for that in this next slide. So it is not just enough to put vehicles into different categories. We also need to think of what they are being used for. So what we see in Kerala is there's a huge preference for electric vehicles for personal vehicles. That is the trend of the EV adoption right now. That is mostly where our two-wheelers and cars will fit in. But there are also public transport vehicles which are shared by a large set of public. This includes the buses and specifically the electric auto three-wheeler models. So this is another area of growth that we do expect to see in future, because especially in the electric auto segment, we know that the erstwhile EV policy, there were financial incentives for it. And we do hope that to see this adoption. But what could be the game changer in terms of, EVs as well as the electricity demand associated with EVs is when the commercial vehicle adoption would pick up. And this would have two segments. So one segment would be catering to passenger transport, for example, could be associated with tourism and other developments in Kerala. And the other segment would be associated with goods transport in Kerala. We know that we also have a lot of ports and other logistic infrastructure. This could be associated with that. So right now where we are, most of our vehicles, especially two-wheelers and cars, they're all tuned towards personal vehicles. But we do hope to see this adoption in future. One another interesting thing here is that Kerala is one of those EV policies which doesn't offer any financial incentives for EV adoption, but still there is a high growth in the personal vehicle segment that we see. And there could be other. This means that there are other contributing reasons to it, socioeconomic factors, public awareness, and even availability of charging stations are few of the contributing factors that could be contributing to it. And definitely more research is needed on this aspect. So one of the things when it happens with personal vehicles is that we tend to charge our vehicles at our homes and even apartments. So that's a global trend. Globally, it is said that a larger share of EV charging does happen at homes. In Kerala, we also have these units where, housing units where if we can park our vehicles, it is always possible that people would prefer to charge there. So then we need to actually change, have all the regulatory perspective ready and all the systems and process ready to do that. So to give you a glimpse into what has been done so far in Kerala, so the Kerala State Electricity Regulatory Commission actually amended the Electricity Supply Code. This was the 5th amendment that happened in 2024. And a new section was added for EV charging, specifically which is focused on homes and apartments. So one of the things that you do see is that if you can get a single phase EV charging connection till 3.3 kilowatt, and anything above that has to be a 3-phase connection. And for an individual home, typically chargers up to 8 kilowatt is allowed. And this is actually subject to, the limitation is based on the connected load. So if I have an 8 kilowatt connection at my home, the maximum capacity I can of the charger I can install is only 4 kilowatt until and unless I actually enhance my connected load so that I can add an 8 kilowatt charger. So that is the step that we'll need to do for it. And we also see that even regulator is thinking forward, because we all know that Kerala typically follows the residential pattern and we have an evening peak demand between 6 to 11 p.m. So during this perspective, even when the supply code developed, it said that normally it is intended that these EV chargers are not operating during this peak time. And if a peak time charging needs to happen, you need specialized tariff for it, which is actually the time of use tariff. And we have also tried to solve the problem with respect to apartments. Of course, apartments function very differently from the way homes operate. So when it comes to apartments, there are two provisions. The first provision is with respect to what could be new apartments. So in the new apartments, even from the consumer meter, you can actually provide charging inside the designated parking space, or this can also be through a common metered connection that can be provided under the facilities, the apartment facilities, the common facilities. There is no restriction to put a fast charger in an apartment under a separate metering. You can also do that. This could be, you could put in a shared ecosystem. But when it comes to the old apartments, basically it will depend on the spare capacity that is available in the existing infrastructure, specifically the distribution transformer. And so the provision right now looks at what would happen if you, what can you provide under the existing capacity under a common meter. So this would be shared points that we can look at. So I'm going to pass on the baton to my colleague Deepak to take over from here and talk to you more about grid impact.
Sure. Thank you, Chandana. So I think given this context of charging allowance at homes and apartments, there is going to be some grid impact. So for instance, a lot of us are familiar with this headline from last year where we had the request to avoid e-charging during evening hours, and try and shift it to daytime. So, and in fact, it has also, the minister also has, made this particular request. And as we know that, in particular seasons, this demand will also start to coincide with a lot of cooling requirements in our homes, people coming back from offices, lots of electric stoves, heaters getting switched on. So all this is going to get strenuous on the grid. So the idea is to see and what are the impacts of all this? If, for instance, you have a transformer rated at 100 kilowatt, and at a particular point of time, you have load, crossing over that limit, you will definitely need to start planning for its replacement. But if at the remaining times of the day, if only 30 kilowatt is getting loaded, then we can definitely think of looking at shifting some of this evening load into the afternoon or morning hours when there is not much loading that is going on. So to do this, one, definitely yes, there are system studies which one can take up, load flow softwares, and elaborate calculations that one can do. So we wanted to take a look at try and simplifying this process for the utility. So as, let's say, you prepare for your annual revenue requirement submissions to the Electricity Regulatory Commission every year, can there be simple tools like this which help document what is going to be the capital expenditure that is needed as far as replacement of DTs are concerned. So we came out with this tool called Elevate. And this is supposed to help utility planners to understand the immediate impacts of different scenarios of EV growth at a distribution transformer level. Of course, what is it useful for? I've spoken about the planning. Also, putting in scenarios like different time of use tariffs, and as a result of that, what is the load shift that this is enabling, and because of that, how much of capex deferral that you can do. And by capex deferral, I mean that any amount which you might have had to spend in this year to replace the transformer, if you are able to spend it 2 or 3 years later, just building on the principles of time value of money, money in hand now is worth more than what is in hand 2-3 years later. Just based on that simple principles and discounting of that, we feel that if you can defer capital expenditure, it will result in more savings for the utility, and therefore savings for the consumers. Also, just in response to one question which just came in, no, TOU for EV is not yet implemented. This, we are hoping in subsequent versions of this tool, we hope to build in features so that utility can model what is the impact of a certain TOU rate on shifting EV demand, and therefore what is the ideal rate that can be rolled out for consumers. So that is the idea. Right now, there is no rate that has been rolled out. And the last objective of this will be to see how we can integrate renewable energy into this EV charging process, whether it is on-site or open access based things. Chandana, next slide, please. Also, in responding to Soumya's question, we will put out a link in the coming few days. There are some few technical glitches that we are that have cropped up. We're just rectifying that and we'll launch it. But the documentation of the features of the tool is already something which is published. We'll share that link with you guys. So generally, how this tool functions is to understand what is the vehicle population estimation in a particular region. So whether you can look at a circle level or at a zone level, what kind of vehicle population is there, out of which how many EVs are there, what is the projected growth of that, what is the typical battery capacity and range that it is using, and categorize that across two-wheelers, four-wheelers, understand the different types, which will then determine how often these vehicles will come in for charging, and overlay all this on the existing, base load growth across the network, project the load growth on those categories as well as on the EV growth, and then look at scenarios. What is going to happen 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, and subsequently, and that will give us an idea of how many and once in the subsequent webinar, when we go into detail into this tool, we will talk about what all data points you can gather from this. For example, not only does it show which transformers are likely to get overloaded, but how many times a year does load growth, including EV, overshoot the planning limits or the actual capacity of the distribution transformer itself. So this is just a very short sneak peek into this tool. We will be organizing a separate discussion to take you through it completely. But for now, I'll pass it on to Ijaz to talk about an on-ground survey that we had done for case.
Thank you, Deepak. Next slide, please, Chandra. Yeah, thanks. So as Deepak mentioned, there are some impacts. There are some impacts caused by these charging stations in the electricity grid. So in order to understand that, at the starting stage, we have conducted a limited survey covering only 5 charging stations. So this is not a larger survey. This is a very limited survey conducted in Kerala, taking samples from Trivandrum and Kochi. So it will not be a representation of all charging stations in Kerala. So we have developed a test conditions as well as a methodology to conduct energy audit of these charging stations. And the charging stations selected are capacities of 30 kilowatt, 60 kilowatt, and 7.4 kilowatt. So we have monitored the charging station for 24 hours, and we observe what kind of vehicles are coming in and getting charged, and what is the pattern of charging. Everything were observed and logged. From that, we have observed that for a 30 kilowatt charger, only 9 kilowatt is the average load. So the demand or the utilization of this charging station is found to be very minimal. In case of a 60 kilowatt charging station, the usage is found to be 11 kilowatt to 20 kilowatt. And from this 24-hour measurement, we have observed that there was a peak demand of 105% of the charger capacity, but it only lasted for 14 minutes. That means these chargers are used very limited only. However, as I mentioned earlier, this is not a representative sample of Kerala. This is for the 5 charging stations we have studied. So going on further analysis, we have observed that these chargers consume some electricity when these are not in use or not connected to a vehicle. So the no load consumption will be in a tune of around 20 to 200 watts, and it's slightly higher where they have installed. In some stations, they have installed a UPS for uninterrupted supply for some time. So for that stations, a slight increase in a tune of 1% have observed compared to the charging stations without this UPS arrangement. So this no load consumption and consumption with the consumption of charging station with the UPS is important when we plan for demand and connected load for these charging stations. And we have also observed some issues with the charging stations on the grid. So some voltage unbalances were observed, and we have observed some current harmonics with the charging station. So I'm not going into the technicalities. This is an ongoing research activity, and it's under review process. So we will be coming out with the reasons for this unbalance and how to overcome this. We will be come back later. So I mentioned about no load consumption, and if we look at the charging station utilization, mostly in these charging stations, on an average, around 9 to 23 cars a day are arriving. And thus, if you look at the charging pattern, it's a 50-50 share. 50% of the cars are charging in the morning time, and the rest of the cars are charging in the evening time. So mostly half of the cars are getting charged during solar hours, and half of the cars are getting charged in the non-solar hours. That's what we have observed. So some of the people used to say that for true decarbonization or the electric vehicles are not green because we are charging from coal electricity. It's true. But if we think of electricity grid in India, it's already dominated by coal power. But if we compare the emission factor of grid as well as petrol or diesel, the emission factor of grid is very low. So electric cars are green compared to petrol or diesel cars. But for true decarbonization, we need to procure 100% of electricity from solar sources only. So in that aspect, we check the possibility of integration of rooftop solar in these charging stations. So considering the limited rooftop area of this charging station, the possibility of installing a rooftop charging station in these charging stations are very limited. Only less than 10% of the daily average consumption can be generated by installing a charging station on the top of installing a solar PV over this charging station. So, but in this in the area near to the charging station, in the distribution transformer level, there may be higher solar capacity and excess electricity will be generated by these solar power plants implemented by the prosumers. So that electricity can be wisely managed to charge the EV. So electric vehicle can become a storage device. So next slide, please, Chandana. So I will be explaining the relevance of that, charging the cars in solar hours in this slide. So if you look at the growth rate of renewable energy from FY18 to FY25, so in 7 or 8 years back, the renewable energy capacity in the Kerala grid was only 361 megawatt. But in 2025, it has increased to more than 1,500 megawatts. And out of which the solar holds the prominent share. So solar have increased from 100 megawatt or 113 megawatt to 1,200 megawatt in FY25. So critically, this increase in solar unbalancing the KSEB network, because we are not consuming much in the solar hours, but we are consuming a lot in the peak hours. So how we can shift the electric vehicle charging into solar hours? So in that thought, we have found that, or in that thought, a differential time of use tariff was introduced. So Chandra, next slide, please. Yeah. So tariff can be considered as a powerful tool to shift consumer behavior to use the electricity. So before December 2024, the tariff was an introductory tariff or a promotional tariff. It was a very less rate, 5.5 rupees for LT based charging station and 6 rupees for HT electric vehicle charging stations. But at that time, there was a fixed charge of 100 per kilowatt per month for LT consumers and 290 kilowatt per month for ST consumers. But realizing the importance of electric vehicle charging during solar hours, Ministry of Power issued a guidelines for a differential time of use tariff. With that, Kerala State Electricity Board is the one adopted that early. And now there is a lesser tariff during solar hours and a higher tariff during non-solar hours. From 5th December onwards, the charging tariff for solar hours is 4.8 to 5 rupees. And later on, it unified to 5 rupees per unit from April 1st, 2025 onwards. So, and another aspect is for charging in non-solar hours, the electricity charges will be higher. So this is the differential time of use tariff were introduced by KSEBL. So this can make consumers shift from shift their charging time from non-solar hours to solar hours, but these need to be studied further. How effective are these tariffs are need to be studied further. And there was a question regarding how many electric two-wheelers are charging at home. Really, we don't have a in-depth correct in-depth studies or a correct answer for that. but we are also trying to do a survey or something to find out the value for that. But we believe that a greater share of domestic electric two-wheeler owners are charging it from home, and some of the electric four-wheeler owners are also charging from home. So considering this, differential tariff or a time of use tariff was introduced for domestic sector as well. So for consumers having consumption above 250 units, have 10% reduction in electricity charges during daytime, and there's a 25% increase in peak hour charges above the normal tariff. So if we charge the vehicle at home during off-peak hours or solar hours, we need to pay only less amount for electricity. However, as I mentioned earlier, we need to study the implications of these tariff changes in detail, whether consumers are agreeing with these changes, and whether these consumers shifting their behavior to charge during solar hours, that need to be studied further. So with this, I am closing the presentation, but next slide, please, Chandra. So yeah, as mentioned earlier, we are planned this webinar as a series. So the research is also ongoing. So we'll be presenting various aspects in our research or our studies in the coming webinars in this series. So first series is over now. Yeah, as Deepak mentioned, Deepak have given a glimpse of Elevate tool. So we will be doing a detailed session on Elevate on the second part of this webinar series, and renewable energy for electric vehicle charging will be the third part, and we will be discussing in detail about time of use rate of electric vehicles and smart charging in the last session. So this is it from my side. Let's move on to Q&A and polls. Over to you, Chandana.
Thank you, Ijaz. Rumpa, may I request you to launch the last poll that we have? These are open-ended questions for all of you. So these are, we do want to understand, in your opinion, where is Kerala going? What will be the EV penetration of Kerala in 2030? Where will we be? And also to understand, in terms of the webinar series that we have proposed, which areas are interesting to you? We can close the poll room if everybody has done answering, and display the results. This is also very promising. It seems that a larger section of the group do believe that we will go far ahead from here, and then we're going to get a higher penetration. We also seen your responses on it's good to see that many of you are interested in the series that we have planned. How we had also planned the series where these are interlinked topics, which are all part of the utility planning process for uptake of electric vehicles and other future loads, as we said. And it's actually good to see the interest. Now we are going to proceed to the Q&A session. We can take up a few questions from the panelists. Please add your questions in the Q&A window. We might not be able to answer all of the questions over this webinar, but we will also meanwhile typing and chatting the response to your questions. And please continue to engage with us for feedback, and if you have further questions. As I said earlier, we'll be also recording this webinar, and this will be posted in our YouTube channel. Maybe perhaps I can direct this question to EV Cell. There is a question as what is the current availability and utilization of existing charging stations in Kerala, and how many of them caters to the higher heavy vehicles like electric buses and trucks, Sajjan and Cinema.
Electric buses and trucks, actually only Kerala State Transport Corporation is having such charging stations, and all of our charging stations are supposed to be for four-wheelers. And utilization, some stations are having good utilization up to 20-25% maximum, but up an average 5 to 10% is the normal utilization. But it really depends upon the area, the kind of charges, availability, and the location, nearby amenities. There are a lot of things associated with that, and the market is catching up. When we started charging infrastructure, only 63 charging stations were there by KSEBL. Now more than 600 chargers are there. Charging stations by private parties are available everywhere. So the growth is very high, and the consumption of electric vehicle charging infrastructure is more than 30 lakhs units per month. So that kind of growth is there.
Right, thanks, Sajjan. So another question that we have is on the GBT and CCS mix in Kerala. And there's a question saying CCS is dominating and GBT also had some presence. So yes, I'll take up this question. Actually, this goes back to how the Ministry of Power has actually developed the guidelines for charging infrastructure. Earlier, when this was developed, for charging stations, if you see that there are India specific standards, and one of such standards which was adopted to India is the GBT charger, which we have placed under the Bharat DC01, and the first generation of electric cars in India were following that protocol, and subsequently we did notice this shift towards CCS2. That's definitely there. So basically, as I wanted to say, that charging infrastructure is also a changing space, and yes, definitely there could be some GBT based chargers in Kerala, but what we need to do is we need to evolve along with the ecosystem, and the KSEBL's refresh and recharge initiative, if you see, this is also about revamping the existing charging infrastructure to make Kerala ready for the future. So yes, so it doesn't matter what chargers you have right now, it's a continuously evolving space, as in the direction where the charging standards are moving.
Sandra, also there is a interesting question on methodology of placing EV charging stations. So is there specific load flow analysis and voltage instability analysis, or are there any placement studies that are being carried out? I don't know if
Yes.
Cinema or Sajjan sir would like to take this up.
Sajjan, do you want to take this up, or we can try to answer?
You can answer. If you want me to say, it's again, I'll just give my comment on this, because at present charging infrastructure is not based on any load flow studies. Wherever there is land availability and somebody is ready to invest money on that, infrastructure has been developed, because the capacity is not that big, 60 kilowatt, 30 kilowatt. When it comes to high capacity charging infrastructure, again, it's more of a real estate project. So when you have a good ample space nearby, prominent areas, you should be able to get the power that is required, and the utility should be able to provide that. So it doesn't really matter. If you want to set it up, it should be provided by the discount. So that is how it works right now.
Yeah. Yeah, just to add to what Sajjan said, this is not just a electricity planning process. This is also a large amount of, urban planning and transport planning wherever the intersections are happening. And right now the game is actually, as Sajjan, is driven by where the space is available, and the grid infrastructure needs to step up to meet that. But your point is still very valid, sir. I do believe, right now we are in that phase of the game wherein your focus is on expanding more charging infrastructure so that chargers are everywhere. But nevertheless, it is possible that specifically for EV integration, not for installation of one charging station, but from a larger impact perspective, we do plan to have further studies at distribution transformer level and feeder level that we definitely do plan to have to understand how much EV charging capacity a specific feeder or a transformer can host. So those studies are planned as one of the tools Deepak has already explained, and I'll stop my answer here. Deepak, anything to add?
No, nothing more to add.
There was another question on
plans on-
voltage stability
Yeah,
and
sorry.
limiting losses. Yeah, so
And also
so
on integrating storage into EV charging.
EV charging.
Both
Yeah.
we could take on.
All right. So I'll start up on the voltage stability and other issues, and you take up on the storage. So specifically on the optimal placement load flow study, as we try to explain in the earlier question, that is actually not under consideration. But we do want to understand the impact from not for just one charging station. When the charging pattern is coming simultaneously from different locations, what would be the impact? So if you look at from the supply code perspective also, definitely there are specific considerations. For example, inclusion of harmonic filters. This is coming from the Kerala supply code. There is also the central electricity guidelines for the technical standards for charging stations. So all of these aspects are covered under it. Nevertheless, we do acknowledge how they are performing and what kind of impact they might be causing in the larger grid, and we do plan to have, as Ijas had pointed out, we have conducted what could be an initial assessment based on a few charging stations, and we do plan to conduct further studies on that. Over to you, Deepak.
Yeah, similarly, I think for BESS integration with charging, I think it is there in the KCB plans, but again, Sini ma'am and Sajjan, you can come in, but at the moment, I don't think there are active projects which are working on that model. There may be few stations which have rooftop solar integrated, but with this and that kind of charging, I don't think there are live stations yet of that nature. But yeah, it is part of Kerala's plans. Storage, for instance, is a big part of KSEBL and the Kerala Energy Department's plans for that. But this particular at the charging station, I don't think there are any live projects for.
Yeah, there are no live projects. It's yet to be explored. The storage option is yet to be explored.
So one other question from Satish mentioning about investment for transformers in case of limit.
Yeah, Sajjan, there's a question on who has to invest.
Is considered.
Yeah. Sajjan, do you want to take up that question? Yeah.
I didn't hear the question properly. Can you come again?
So the question was on who will invest in that infrastructure if load availability is less in case of DT. Yeah.
It's the investor who is supposed to invest now, as of now. Whatever is the scenario there in that particular location, the estimate will be provided by the DISCOM, that particular office in charge of that location. You have to visit and apply for the feasibility where the estimate will be provided, and you will have to pay for it for the upstream development.
Right. We're almost at the end of the time. Maybe we can take up one more question. There's an interesting question on safety of EV charging stations currently in Kerala. So I do want to add that when we did our study, we also tried to look at safety perspective of charging stations. We also know that the electrical inspectorate has, who guides the safety aspects, they have actually given guidelines for the safety of charging stations. But we could do further assessments to improve the safety of EV charging stations. That could be something that we could consider as part of our further research. Yeah. For the others, please continue sharing your questions. You can reach out to, let me just share my screen again and take you to the last slide that we have. Please reach out to Ijaz and me. If you have any specific feedback on how to conduct EV related activities in Kerala, we'll be very happy to take that up. On specific feedback that you have on the webinar, there's also already a link that was shared. So you can write to indiaenergy@wri.org. And as I rightly said, this is the first webinar in our series. We do plan to engage with you. This was an introductory webinar. Do share your feedback with us on what did you find interesting, what topics are the topics that we covered sufficient, are the topics that we are proposing interesting. So please do share that, and we continue to engage with you through these webinars and actually partner with you in the journey that Kerala is going to take. And as I said, the next webinar in the series will be focused on this specific tool that we have to help utility planning called Elevate. All right. With all of your permission, can we conclude the session? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
all
you
for
to
taking time out
everybody.
and joining.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.